G, and you're listening to the Master of One podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Master of One podcast, the podcast that can attest that these are the droids you're looking for. Part 1 this week, we talk about the Big Book of Madness, Sphero's R2-D2, and the Deep Web. I'm Andrew, your Master of Art and Design.
I'm Patrick, your Master of Television and Film.
And I'm Luke, your Master of Toys and Games.
So have your astromech set your coordinates, because it's time to hit the jump.
If you say that fast enough, it sounds dirty.
We like to kick every episode off by going around the table, which is where we talk about something new, fun, and noteworthy about our weeks. Patrick, why don't you start us off this week?
I have so many things, guys. First, let me jump in and say how excited I am about Lego's announcement. They said this on September 1st. The Millennium Falcon, I think it's part number 75192. I have no idea why I remember that, but it is the largest set they have ever produced. 7,500 pieces, the Millennium Falcon. This will be the third one they've put out. And so if you remember, there's one that came out, I want to say last year. There's one from a few years ago. And that one, so this is partly is because I love Lego and Star Wars. The other part of me is because I love speculating. I've talked about it before. The first Millennium Falcon they put out, you see on eBay pretty regularly for about $3,000 if you get a complete set. So this one that's dropping, it's going to have a list price of $799. I really want to pick it up, hold on to it for a bit, and then honestly, that might be what gives me a down payment on the house. Who knows? But it looks beautiful. Have y'all seen it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait. So you're saying you're going to buy it, open it, put it together, and then sell it?
No, I'll have to not open it. I'll have to keep it new. I want to. I mean, if you've seen, so I love Lego. I mean, I'm like both of you guys. I had tons of them. I had a saxophone case growing up. I have no idea where the saxophone was, but it was just chock full of just tons of different Legos.
Yeah.
And man, even now, I wish I'd never gotten rid of those.
Yeah.
The latest one I got put together was the Disney, the castle.
The magic. Yeah. The Cinderella's castle.
Yeah, that is a super large set. And I was lucky enough to get to put one of those together around Thanksgiving of last year, but I enjoy the big builds. The problem is, I really love building. I don't care about displaying.
Sure.
That's the fault in it. So I don't necessarily want to look at it when it's finished, but I enjoy the act of putting it together.
How long did that take you guys to put that together?
So there were 5 people working on it. And I want to say it was still a few hours.
Yeah. So I have the fire station, the firehouse, the Ghostbuster firehouse that I got when that first came out. And that is a 4,634 pieces is how big that one is. And I remember putting that together in one night. It took me 8 hours to put it together.
And so just imagining that this one is 80% larger than that one.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I mean, so it'll have detailed interiors, and if I read correctly, it even has things like the satellite dishes on the outside looked different from this episode versus this episode. And so you have swappable ones so they can match depending on which one you want to display. It's things like that. It's super cool. So anyway, this drops October 1st. I don't know what the quantity is. I don't know how long they're going to be producing them. I don't know if it's a one and done. I have no idea. I know it drops October 1st. I will be just clicking away on my computer hoping I pick one up. I am excited about it.
Did you say the list price?
Huh?
Did you say the list price for it?
$799 is the list price.
Yeah.
As much as I say I want to flip it to sell it, my guess is I will, as soon as it's in my hands, I'll just take it apart, put it together, and I'll store it somewhere. So
are you going to super glue it together?
I'm really that disciplined.
Are you going to super glue it together?
Oh, no, I wouldn't super glue, though. But to be fair, I've never super glued any Lego. It's not that I don't want to do it because I want to keep the option of taking it apart. It's just that feels
wrong. Yeah, I've never done it either, but I know some people do.
Good.
So
So anyway, that's the product that I'm excited for. On a separate note, this is like, Patrick's Soapbox has become a regular segment here at M of One, and I have a very, very short one today. I want to make one note and just move on. On the note of customer service, I had an incident this past week. I had an upset client, and I had to work through a bit of that. So I worked to get the guy on the phone, talk him through it, those type of things. And honestly, at the end of it, there wasn't a resolution in the sense that the guy didn't get what he wanted. Okay? That being said, at the end of it, me and him, we were both much happier that we had talked it through. And so I just want this to just put this little note there, plant a seed, that customer service does not mean that the customer gets what they wanted. And it doesn't mean you get badgered to death or give in. And it also doesn't mean that you're super angry, but then do the right thing. And I'm doing air quotes.
Sure.
So the point is, it's just being a human being, talking to someone else, presenting the reality of the situation, and then seeing if you have a way of working through it.
How do you be a human being?
That's just the empathy part of it. I mean, it's very easy to have a me versus, whenever someone gets angry, it's very easy to switch into it's me versus them situation.
Sure.
As opposed to if I was talking to a friend, what would this actually look like? So that's all. I mean, it's just, I'm planting a seed. I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to put together something a bit broader and more in depth on the topic, because it's something that's very close to me. It's something that was modeled very well by my father growing up, and it's something that I've got to see what it looks like in a good way played out, but I haven't really found a way of communicating it yet. So hopefully I'll find the correct format for it at some time in the future, but it's just something that's been on my mind because it was a situation that kicked off my holiday weekend. But
gotcha.
For what that's worth, just take that, accept it. But Luke,
yes.
Why don't you take it?
All right. My week, you know what, man? Not much has been going on. Rachel and the boys were gone for the weekend visiting friends in West Virginia. So I had the house to myself. So naturally, I just worked on M of One stuff all weekend. We are, we've said it 1,000 times, and I think we need to say it probably 1,000 times more. Videos coming September 14th. And so surprisingly, there's a lot to figure out there and try and figure out how to make it happen.
Weirdly.
It's weird because video is so accessible all over the place that it is like deceivingly difficult to make it work. I think there is the rule of three that we're running into a little bit. The easy, cheap, and good. Fast. So you can do it good, but it won't be cheap and it won't be fast. Or whatever, you interchange one. And so we're running into that. We're trying.
You've made a rule of 4 so far, but it's fine.
Well, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Andrew said a 4.
It's a simple rule of 12 where
divided by 2.
Don't worry about it. So obviously we are working from help from our backers on Patreon and other things that have gone on. And so we're trying to keep it as cost effective as possible. And so we're running into, within this price range, how do we make this happen with quality and ease, so there's not a bunch of back end editing or syncing or a crazy workflow or something like that. So I've been working with that all weekend. Surprisingly, I don't know if you guys know this, 2 webcams on the same computer, they don't like each other. It doesn't matter what you do.
That's the thing. So for a little insight for someone, C922 webcam is what we use when we're talking typically. It has honestly a great video quality.
Yeah.
Like I know Logitech has a step up from this that's like some 4K cam. But that being said, like this is perfectly
acceptable. Sure.
Yeah, adept at whatever I do in the job. But when you're trying to run it in like a program, like think Appear-In or Skype or Google Hangout, whatever, a lot of times that becomes your only source of input. So you can't also have that in a video capture software.
Right.
And then if you try to so I know that you can screen cap your video input, things like that, and then it's so glitchy. It's just bizarre that it is so difficult to talk to someone and at the same time be just storing that file locally, that stream, and it's almost feels like an impossibility, especially since I don't know that we have a solution yet.
Yeah, well, we're getting very close, but all of that to say, that was my weekend. Between that stuff, I saw 2 movies that I hadn't seen yet. I was real late on them. I watched the new Baywatch, and I watched The Circle. So have you guys seen either of those?
I just watched The Circle.
Okay. Patrick, did you see The Circle?
Okay, I genuinely hope that you liked it, but I'll admit I did not watch it because the reviews were so bad for it.
Gotcha. I wanted to like it. I really, really wanted to like it. It paints this awesome picture of the what if in social media, some big network like Facebook or Google, and what are they doing with our information? They're storing it, and there's things going on. Obviously, we can say spoilers because it's been out forever.
Plus, it's Tom Hanks, and you always want to root for Tom Hanks.
Right. He's awesome. Well, I think this movie could have been great if they would have focused on the parts that needed to be focused on. It felt like there was a lot of things. The movie skipped around a lot. The movies all of a sudden went from, running at 10 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour, then back to 30 miles an hour, then to 90 miles an hour. It was the intensity was shifting so much, and it was really hard to understand from a character standpoint why certain characters got angry really fast, or there was a scene with the main protagonist and her friend where he was super angry about a post that she had made, and it came from out of nowhere. All of a sudden, this guy was getting death threats and something like that, and there was no context besides just her sharing a picture, and it felt really kind of out of left field. I don't know. I don't know if Andrew, if you felt any of that stuff. It just felt very. It felt like they had a lot to put in, and then were stuck with the time constraints of the movie and decided to cut out pieces.
So I'm so glad that you said that, because we watched this film. We watched 2 films this weekend. This one we watched to completion. The other one we stopped because we watched it after we watched this one, and we were like, we're done watching bad movies. So we literally shut the other one off 30 minutes in. But with this one, yeah, I think that's it. So it's adapted from a book, and I imagine the book allows you to develop these characters a lot more, and it makes a lot more sense. But that was the thing. Eller Coltrane in this, Emma Watson, Tom Hanks, and oh my gosh, what's his name? The nerd guy who is hilarious in everything that he's in.
Screech.
Nope. Luke, what's the partner's name? What's
I can't remember.
Name?
You're asking. I'm on the spot too. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name right now. But that's gonna drive me nuts. But it has actors in it that seem like they should know what they're doing. The problem is the writing felt so erratic.
Yeah.
It felt like they shot a 3-hour movie and then condensed it into a 1 hour and 50-minute movie.
John Boyega's part, I wanted to like him so much, and then he was barely in it.
So wait.
It's just plucking major things that add context to the movie left and right, to what you're left with is a bunch of intense scenes that
it's Patton Oswalt, by the way.
They all feel like they're non sequiturs.
Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt, that's it, yeah.
Patton Oswalt. I would have never, ever in a million years guessed Patton Oswalt from your description. So I remember thinking that the environments looked cool and the logo was fine and whatever. But honestly, even the bad previews aside, the premise seemed so on the nose. I don't know. It just, when I was watching the preview, it was basically okay, you're referring to Google. I get it.
Yeah, but the preview,
or
the
Apple,
preview didn't
or
do,
Facebook.
Didn't do it justice.
But I'm saying it didn't really leave much to the imagination, because I felt like I already knew how they were going to wrap it up.
No.
Based on the social issues they were dealing with. Is that not the case?
You don't.
It's not, and here's why. Because the setup they give in a preview implies that there's like some deeper intrigue or mystery about it. There isn't. There's no payoff to this. At the end of it, nothing happens differently.
I was surprised by the ending. Like what happened in the end, I was like, oh, okay, I know what's going to happen. You know, I mean, I don't know. Do we want to say it? Do we want to say what happened?
Who cares? This
Like,
movie
so
is,
I thought at the end it was going to be they shut down the circle. Like she finds out all this information. They leak all of the information out, and the circle gets shut down. They leak all the information, and they say, "Let's keep it going, but let's make it accessible to everybody. Knowledge is accessible to everyone, and let's just keep this trend going of just way." I don't know. It's crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like you think that there's based on the preview and even what the movie would set up in the first 2/3 of it makes you think, oh, there's going to be some like, oh, they're really harboring some really dark, deep stuff. And then what ends up happening is she releases all of the two guys in charge information.
The owners.
And and then you think it's going to be like this big blow up, but instead it's just like, okay, cool. Now we have open sharing information again. Like.
That sounds positive.
Yeah, but it's so not what
anticlimactic. It's just really anticlimactic.
Anticlimactic is a great word for it. And Luke, what you were saying with the weird pacing of it is on the money because like she starts and then within like a month they're giving her like the keynote address and everyone knows who she is and like it didn't make sense given that they left out context.
I think the hard part for me was there was certain things where I think there's a time when she's first on stage with Tom Hanks after she made this mistake or whatever, and her friend is watching her and going, "Oh, she's a natural." At no time in the movie did I ever think that she was a natural at public speaking. She always felt so like she's just guessing at what to say.
Yeah, we need to get off this soapbox because I could literally do 45 minutes about why this movie was absolutely
At the same
terrible.
time, let me say this though. At the same time, it made me second guess social media choices and made me think, do I really want to share everything? Like, do I
Should I really be friends with Emma Watson?
Well, I mean, are there like, should I really have all of these accounts? Like, I mean, they're obviously all these companies are storing our data, right? And we see that, I've been looking up cameras nonstop on how to figure out this video thing. And all of a sudden I'm seeing all of these camera ads in every other social media platform for myself. So it makes me think.
I'd much you can't be a public figure, and what we do is a public figure, and not be
part of the machine.
Well,
so like, what does that mean?
Saying that if like the app you're using doesn't charge you for anything, if there's not a clear product, you're the product.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that okay though? I mean,
yeah,
right. I mean, that's what you have to decide for yourself.
That's the price of doing business, right? Like that's what you have to figure out for yourself. I personally do not have a Facebook. My Instagram has like 60 people that I actually follow. I do not have a Twitter. I don't, have like a MySpace or a LiveJournal or whatever. I have decided to limit that stuff. But
sure.
But that's because you're pretentious.
Yeah, you're right.
It's because I don't like people. I actually don't care what they know about me. I just don't like them.
You heard it here first. Andrew, that's it. I'm done.
That was it? Okay. So, like I said, I watched that movie. The movie I shut off, I wasn't going to go into it, but since we're on it, the movie I shut off was a movie called Walt Before Mickey. So this seems like a movie that'd be right up my alley. It's a movie about Walt Disney growing up in Marceline and Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrible movie. Like,
really?
The acting is just gross. John Heder plays Roy Disney, and oh my gosh, if you thought,
what's the name of it again?
It's called Walt Before Disney, or Walt.
I've never heard anyone refer to acting as just gross.
It was terrible, and this is coming from a person.
Mickey.
I have. What did I say?
No, I think you said Disney one time, but yeah, Walt Before. Mickey.
Walt Before Mickey.
Yeah, you said that.
This is a subject matter I care deeply about, and I don't think that actually affected me not liking it. That made me want to like it even more.
Right.
And like push through. And like there's so many notes that were like right off the bat that were like, oh my gosh, really? Oh my gosh. Until finally Chandra was like, how much longer are we going to watch this? I'm like, let's just shut it off. Like we don't have any
Yikes.
more time to waste on bad acting.
You
and
need
bad
to
writing.
check some reviews. A cursory search would have let you know that was time not well spent.
It doesn't matter. Like I don't watch reviews because I don't agree with all the people who are doing the reviewing.
Sure.
So I don't let that dictate. I also stumbled across this when we were trying to watch something else.
I think I had this moment this week because Mackenzie's gone. She's like gone for a week. It's really terrifying and depressing. I don't know what to do. And so I've started trying to watch more Netflix. I actually don't watch a lot on Netflix. I tend to go to the theaters. And I had this moment of like, there are so many bad movies that you're recommending to me. And it takes so much time
He's
to
talking
look
to
up
you, Luke.
to like figure that out. Yeah. And I had this moment of like, why don't they put like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, whatever? Why don't they put the scores in the app? Then I realized it's because if they put them in the app, people wouldn't watch the movies.
Yeah, they want you to watch
they would
it.
realize that they're garbage.
They put them in the app.
Did you watch Death Note? You should watch Death Note.
They put them in the app because that's how.
They don't put Rotten Tomatoes. Not Rotten Tomatoes. Netflix does not have Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb scores in the app.
Then what the heck did I just watch it on? I thought I watched it on Netflix, and it had the little Rotten. So the Rotten Tomatoes score for it was
20. It's
17.
20.
It was okay. So then so the Circle had a 17.
Yeah.
Baywatch had a 19. So we were like,
Baywatch
maybe we should have watched Baywatch.
Listen, Baywatch, there were some funny parts, but that movie is garbage too.
Yeah, I imagine. I'm sad though.
I will watch
just
Death Note. Death Note looks interesting.
Oh,
Luke.
Death Note's
will check
great.
it out.
I liked it a lot.
Okay, so we'll shift to better things now. I got a book in the mail. I think it was I don't even know how I stumbled across this on Instagram. I saw an art post and then I followed the artist and then tracked it down. And they worked on this book, but this book is called House of Penance. I'm going to show you guys. There's a link to it in our show notes.
That's creepy.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, Luke won't be allowed to read this.
He won't allow himself.
So let me just read to you the one paragraph descriptor of it. It's a Dark Horse comic, but it's this is the graphic novel, so it's several of the issues combined into one. The Winchester House. Okay. Actually, the subtitle of it's not just the house that's haunted. The Winchester House, famous for its original owner's bizarre compulsion to incorporate a multitude of architectural curiosities, but as the bereaved Sarah Winchester's workers toil on stairways to nothing and doors to nowhere, a mysterious stranger arrives, and he could make Sarah's demons all too real. I've just started reading it, just came in. It's very dark, as you could imagine. The artwork in it is very unique. It's I don't want to say it's fun because I think that paints the wrong kind of picture of it. It's Mike Mignola-esque meets a little bit more detail. But if you are a fan of like the macabre and
it seems like there's like 4 or 5 colors going on. That's about it.
Yeah. It's a very limited color palette, very simple drawing. That's the Mignola part, but you get maybe a little bit more detail.
Mm-hmm.
You answered my question. I was going to say, which part's the Mignola part?
Okay, yeah, the Mignola part is the simplicity and color palette, and then the artwork itself looks kind of like Mignola, but there's a little bit more texture to it than he would typically add. But it's I'm excited to read it. I mean, I'm like ecstatic to read it. And then I watched It because I'm going to see It this weekend when it comes out. With Doc Reed. Shout out to I Am Readicus.
I Am Readicus.
And so I watched the original because I had never seen the original. I saw like 30 seconds of it when I was little, and that's what made me hate clowns. I remember that piece of it. And I even remember what scene it was when I saw it last night. It's the scene where he's digging the graves, and he pops his head up and says, we've got one for each of you or whatever. But so I watched this last night. Here's what I realized when I started it last night at 10 o'clock. It's a 3-hour movie. The original Stephen King.
Man.
Gross.
You want to know why it's 3 hours? I found out in
Why?
doing some research. It was originally a TV series. It was a mini-series, 2 episodes at an hour and a half each. So it's a 3-hour long deal. I'll say this about it.
That is really a mini series.
Yeah.
2 episodes.
It's very mini.
It's considered a mini-series, yeah. Here's what I would say about it. It's not very scary. It came out in 1990. I would have figured that there would be a little bit better Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just jaded a little bit by that, but it wasn't very scary. The psychological part of it was maybe the eerier part. But I have a feeling this new one's going to be a heck of a lot more sinister. Tim Curry, like the clown himself, Pennywise the clown himself in the original. When it's just him, he's not very scary. He kind of changes to a version where he's got like sharp teeth and his eyes kind of change color or something like that to become more terrifying. But he's not that way for most of the film. Most of the film that you see him, he's just a clown. This one, the new one, he just looks scary all the time. At least all of the graphics that I've seen for it. I'm really excited to watch it.
So, you know my favorite fact about the new film?
What?
In the preview, there's a scene. So at this point, the brother has disappeared. You know, the You'll Float
Georgie.
Too.
Yeah.
And the other brother, he's upstairs. He's holding a Lego piece. And he's walking into like the kitchen. And you see Georgie run by. And I think he's like running to the stairs that lead to the basement. And it freaks the brother out. And he drops the Lego. And you see it like shatter on the floor. It's this like green and lime green Lego pieces. Apparently, that color Lego wasn't introduced till like a few years after this movie takes place. Yeah. I love that. I love that people are like smart enough and aware enough to pick that stuff out. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a full review of it next week, hopefully, if I get.
I see what you did there.
If I get TV and film, especially if not, you'll get an abbreviated version in the Around the Table. But I'm really excited. So this week has been a little bit dark and mysterious, but I think for now I'm gonna let that be it for Around the Table. Up next, we're gonna talk about some master categories. Every week we talk about our master categories, and those are the categories we drew the week before completely randomly. Then we pick our topics based on those categories. Luke, why don't you kick us off?
All right. I had art and design, and I mentioned a game in my Gen Con review that I picked up that was super fun to play. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the art of it because the more I play it, the more I love it. I got a game by ELO called The Big Book of Madness. And this is a deck building game. You play students trying to seal monsters back into this tome. And the art is just incredible. The artist, his name is Xavier Ganifi Durin. His alternate name is Naade. Okay. He's French, so I don't know. But the art style is just awesome. It reminds me a little, I told Andrew this before we started, it reminds me of he talked about a game called Unimo that we both backed, I think, on Kickstarter. And what did that artist do also besides Unimo? He did another game. But anyway.
I don't remember him doing another game.
Oh, I thought you had mentioned he did like Dice Forge or something.
No. That's Bibone or Biboon or whatever his name is. But he did Niet, and he did Citadel of Time, and then
Gotcha. It
Dice
does
Forge.
remind me a little bit of that art style too. So the way this game is set up, there's so many different pieces. So there's cards for the book, and the way that this works, it actually flips in the game to different pages, and those are the monsters that you have to destroy.
So why does it not bind them? Is it so you can change up?
Because you shuffle it and you have a different order, and then there's all these different first pages because the first page kind of sets the tone for the game a little bit, and then it has all of these different characters that you can be, and each character has kind of its own abilities and different things it can do throughout the game.
I love the artwork in this game.
It's so good. Cow. It's really like every character has a lot of attitude too, and they're all pretty different. It doesn't feel like it's the same character over and over, just with different colors. So it has that. It has these little mini element cards of all different elements. It's got a book token that kind of tracks through tracks through the board, so you know where the monsters are per turn.
Is that wood or is it plastic?
It's wood, yeah. The book is a wood piece. It has all of these spell cards. So it's got so many different types of cards and different shapes of cards. But the art style, it's very, it's kind of like I think it reminds me more of like a Jeff Delgado piece.
Yes.
It's like illustrative, but also the finish is a painting. Like, I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. Maybe Andrew can do a little bit better, but it's awesome. And then there's these element curses. So it's just chock full of all different types of artwork and all different types of cards, but it's very cohesive. It all feels like it fits together. It doesn't feel like one piece is out of place. And the game is fast, and it's really fun for 2 to 5 players.
Is it, and it's available now for people to pick up, right?
Yeah, you can get it from ELO, from Amazon, from Cool Stuff Inc., from eBay, like pretty much wherever.
Local game shop?
Local game shop for sure. I even saw it, I think I saw it at Target a couple months ago, and then it hasn't been restocked since. So I don't know if they did a trial to see how it would sell, and maybe it didn't sell, and so it's not been restocked, or maybe there's low stock and they just haven't fulfilled it yet. But you can find it almost anywhere. I would check your local GameStop first, your local game shop first, obviously. If not, there's plenty of options online to get it. But the art style is fantastic. It's a really clear, the way it's designed is very clear what each piece does and what each element is. There's no guessing of what you're playing, which is very helpful because the rules can be complex when you're learning. Once you learn it, it's very simple. But the first sit down is a little complex on how to get through the game. But yeah, that's it. It's a great game, great art style. Definitely pick it up if you like deck building games and are looking for something 2 to 5 players. So with that, I'm going to throw it to Andrew.
Okay. I will be the Andrew Cream in a Patrick and Luke sandwich.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dream come true.
So I got Toys and Games, and it was great. Great excuse to buy something fun and awesome. So I bought. So I talked last year or earlier this year about the BB-8 by Sphero. I'm showing the guys right now. This guy's so fun. I think you guys have probably seen one of these in person at this point.
Yep.
Operate, and yeah, they're super fun and cute and whatever. But on Forest Friday, they announced that Sphero was releasing 2 more droids to add to the collection. One is another BB unit. It's BB-9E, and he's the exact same size, same shape, but his head is flat. He is a first order droid, so he's all black. But then they were also releasing a fully remote control app enabled R2D2, and he's to scale. So I got him. So here's R2D2. Here's BB-8. So to give you an idea of scale. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a review on this. I've had a chance to play with him a little bit today, but I did a full unboxing and like a mini review that's about 10 to 12 minutes long, and that'll go live tomorrow on our YouTube channel. So you can go tomorrow and watch that. Subscribe now so that you don't miss out on that, and then you get to see all the fun and cool stuff that he does. But he is so cool. I mean, he acts like R2D2. I mean, he feels like
he doesn't listen to you and just goes and does what he wants.
You can have him do that. Actually, you can set him on patrol and he goes and does everything. His third leg slides down when he's ready to roll around, and he tilts back and rolls. He has so much. They have these like pre-programmed in the app, these pre-programmed like emotions that he will communicate, and it feels very much like R2D2. Like he has the attitude of R2D2. I don't know how to say it. I mean, it's a toy, but he actually walks. Like he'll do like the little jittery walk, like where he gonna goes like this, like the back and forth. He'll pulsate and he'll do that. And what's cool about this, and you can control his head to look around and do all that stuff. You can do the AR where you use him to look through the Millennium Falcon. So you can go down the hallways and stuff of the Millennium Falcon on your phone, and you control him to go through. That's really
cool.
neat. And And then you can watch the movies with him. And what's cool, you can actually, with the same app, you can control any of the app-enabled droids. So you can actually watch. We're gonna do this tomorrow night. Watch The Force Awakens, connect BB-8 and R2-D2, and they'll sit and watch the movie with you and react in real time to the things that are happening on screen with each other. They'll interact with each other, and then they'll interact with the movie. Which is so fun. I mean, it just adds a whole nother layer of fun to it.
How much did you say it is?
He's $179, so he's not cheap. But at Target, because it's like because it's Star Wars is the thing right now. I don't know how long this offer is going on, but I got a $25 gift card for buying anything Star Wars over $100. So nice. it was essentially like $155.
Did you use your Target card for extra off?
I don't know. I don't have a Target card. She didn't say. But dude, it's so much fun. If you want to see like in the unboxing, I drive him around a little bit on my desk, and you can kind of see and hear him. Oh, this is cool too. And then I'll go to your question, Patrick, because I see that hand. What's nice about this, which is better than BB-8, the experience with BB-8 is he has a built-in speaker in his head. There's no charging base. You just plug it in back here, so he doesn't sit on this random thing. And because there's a speaker in his head, all of his sound effects and all of his voice and modulation and stuff comes out of his actual body, as opposed to the BB-8, where the sound effects that BB-8 makes come out of the phone app. Does that make sense? So it's still fun, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like if you're not the one holding the phone, you don't get to get the full experience of BB-8 talking to you. Whereas R2-D2, you could be holding it and someone else on the other side of the room has the app, and he'll still talk and interact with you.
Right.
So it's cool.
So I'm curious, and this is going to be easier for y'all to answer because y'all have kids. I do not. On one hand, it seems amazing the amount of not just how well designed the toy looks, but also the interaction you can get for the money.
Okay.
And I know that some of the stuff we talk about is pretty expensive, and I know that there's companies out there that are trying to bring back the toy of your childhood, right? Like there's literally lines of toys. Funko has a line. I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah, but the action figure line.
Right, but the idea is that it like
reaction. That's it. That was it.
Reaction, yeah. It recreates the toys of your childhood. So thinking about the fact that feels like somehow the quality is missing, but at the same time seeing what you can get for the money and seeing the stuff coming out, how do you think now ranks to when you were a kid? How do you think the toys rank? How do you think whether it's the quality or the fun factor, whatever it is, what do you think of now versus then?
So, I think there's a twofold piece of it. For the price range that we're talking about, toys that I would have had growing up, toys now are far less superior. They are crappy, it feels like to me. Like just the average off-the-shelf figures. I
like
can
$8 or something like that.
Yeah, like all the Ninja Turtle stuff. Like after the new originals, like the 2012 ones, they started doing all this expansion stuff. They're terrible. The quality dropped like just overnight, just dropped off the deep end. Toys are just not produced at the same level. Now, we have way more opportunities for like mid and high-end toys now than we had when I was a kid, and those are far superior. So, I don't know. Does that make sense? Luke, do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. Figures now are complete junk compared to the figures when we were growing up. I mean, I remember, even if you just look at G.I. Joes had like, I want to say it's something like 12 to 14 points of articulation in the little 3.5-inch figures.
Because of the rubber bands.
They had the rubber. I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, you could pull it apart if you really wanted to, but those lasted a while. They wouldn't snap. The biggest thing with G.I. Joes is you would break the thumb off from putting weapons in their hands. Now the action figures are just, it's the legs, straight legs move and straight arms move. And you might have head turn and you might have wrists or elbows depending on the figure. But those figures go from a base of $7 to $8 to one with more articulation is 10 to 12. So you're paying more for articulation, and it's a worse. I mean, they're worse than the original. A G.I. Joe. I mean, obviously, I know inflation happens, but it was like $4 a G.I. Joe. And then, like you said, Andrew, we had the bigger, higher price stuff was Legos or Technics, and or like big play sets for these action figures. And that was like our higher range toy. Now there's all of the electronics that are out, and like Nerf guns, all this kind of expanded range of like the medium price toy. You know, there's everything from 10 and below. Now anything 20 to 50, there's way more options than when we were kids. So yeah, I think you're spot on, Andrew. It was the good old days if you're looking at action figures. Now for a higher priced toy, there's a whole bunch of options depending on what your kid's into.
Yeah, and even from when I was like a teenager, where if you wanted a higher, like a higher grade medium, middle of the road figure, it was McFarlane only. Like that was the only one who was going to produce something. Now there's several, like NECA and a couple of other companies now are killing it. Like, so we're to the point where I can't tell the difference between that and some of the McFarlane stuff.
Well, but even those now are like $30, which a McFarlane was like highest I think I ever paid was like $20 maybe. You know? So, and it's more expensive for less quality.
Yeah, good question, Patrick. On that note, check out the unboxing video if you want to see more details. But otherwise, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick.
That's right. So, TV and film. Very exciting. And by the way, I know you were talking about your unboxing. There's a second unboxing that I can't remember if I mentioned, but Huck G, we unboxed one of the thank you blanks. We actually talked about it in last week's episode. We told you it's coming out this week. It is out. I threw the link in the show notes again, but you can find it on the YouTube channel. So definitely give it a look. So yeah, this week,
that one goes beyond an unboxing. I mean, it is an unboxing, but it goes a little bit deeper into like talking about Huck and giving a little bit more of a send off.
To my friends that like aren't familiar at all with like the industry, I tell them it's like basically like LeBron like stepped out of the game. Like it feels that heavy of a thing.
Sure.
Of Huck deciding to kind of move on for the time being, and so the unboxing is part of it. But even more than that, it's just talking about the influence Huck has had on the industry and kind of our feelings about that. So it's a pretty big thing. You look like you're about to say something, Andrew.
I was just gonna say, and our friend over at Spanky Stokes shared it. So thanks for posting that on your blog, and thanks for the love, friend.
Yeah, thanks, John. So yeah, all good. Cool. So anyway, this week TV and film. And I got to see a few movies. I think I've seen 4 since last week. I also got trapped into a 3-hour film, Andrew, because I didn't realize Gangs of New York was 3 hours. But I think that was a bit of... I mean, I think it was probably a better watch, honestly. But the movie I'm talking about right now, or the documentary, I should say, is Deep Web. So actually, I became aware of this a couple of days ago. I was looking at some top 10 lists for best documentaries. I tend to be a big fan of documentaries because that junk actually happened. And specifically, I was trying to find a North Korea documentary because that's kind of like our current political climate. And I found a top 10 list, and it had a documentary, but then under that, it had one for Deep Web. So I saw it, took note of it. It wasn't on Netflix, and so I forgot about it. And then today, going through the Hulu app, and boom, what would you know? Deep Web is on Hulu. I didn't even realize it. So I thought, I'll give it a watch. So here's the idea. So Deep Web, let me just go and clear it up real quick. Even though it relates to the Deep Web, it's not really about the Deep Web. It's actually about the one of the owners or managers of the Silk Road. So for everybody that this is totally foreign to, the idea is that the web you experience, so this is pages that are indexed. That's to say pages that have been crawled and registered and are visible. That's the surface web. You have something below that that's called the deep web, and it's actually much, much, much larger than the surface web. I mean, many times larger.
Really?
And this is, these are things that aren't indexed. So think of things like bank records and things like that. So it's not stuff you want people to be able to search and find and crawl, but it's stuff that exists. Additionally, I assume it includes different intranets and things like that. Well,
I guess because that all has to live somewhere, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess that's the point.
It does,
okay.
Yeah. And so within that, there's a section that they, that is, now this is where my terminology is going to get wrong because I don't really understand it, but it is controlled by something called Tor, and it's considered the Darknet. And there's this general opinion that that's where like the nefarious activity of the deep web takes place.
Yeah, that's where
now,
you like auction like body parts and like methamphetamines and
I can hire hitmen and all this kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's where all that stuff happens.
Crazy stuff. And the idea is that within Tor prevents any tracking of a user's movements when the user's inside there. So it's completely anonymous. Now,
it's like a VPN, right?
Say it again?
Like a VPN or something.
Maybe. So this is where my technical knowledge breaks down because that's just not my area. So for instance, I don't know if a VPN obscures it or actually like closes it off. But in the case of Tor, once you enter, you cannot see a person's movements. So anyway, so that's the Darknet. And so that's known to kind of be where the, again, the crazy stuff happens.
Right.
Well, Silk Road was a marketplace on
it's the eBay of the Darknet. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the idea is that you could buy pretty much anything. And it was kind of thought that, drugs and hitmen and whatever you wanted. Now, once you actually start getting a little further into what the Silk Road promoted, really drugs was the main commodity.
Sure.
Now, so this is where I need to add a clarification. Again, deep web is not about the deep web, even though that's the name of the documentary. And it's not about Darknet. And it's really not about Silk Road. I mean, it's really about this one
Bitcoin
manager. And so I do want to... Yes?
I said Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin is actually a big part of it because the idea is that Bitcoin allows, given that you manage it in a certain way, it allows you to kind of have anonymous transactions. So anonymous transactions paired with anonymous internet activity, it was the combination that has allowed basically open buying and selling of drugs to take place.
Sure.
So
I imagine this is what you're trying to get to in you being off of social media. Like, this is where you're trying to go. You watch this movie as research. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
This is not at all where I'm trying to go. So anyway, I just wanted to clear up that it's not really about the deep web. It's really about this one guy. But the idea is that it follows his ultimate arrest, trial, and then conviction. And it's talking to friends around him and then also kind of talking about the circumstances that allowed Silk Road specifically to prosper and then also the things they were after. In addition to talking to parents, so we never actually talk to the main guy, but we get to hear from his parents. In addition to that, we also get to hear from a editor at Wired magazine who's run some stories on him, and it's actually a really, really good just perspective added. So anyway, that as far as like the long and the short of it, I mean, ultimately the guy goes to jail. It's what you would expect, right? I mean, the guy is running a service that facilitates the sale of narcotics, and he goes to jail. Big surprise. But I think the deeper thing to that is just this question of what level of anonymity should any person have? And when you're looking at the context of selling drugs, it's pretty easy to say, oh, well, they deserve to be caught. But if you extrapolate that back, I mean, if you think about someone had a hunch, and that hunch allows them to completely disregard a person's rights and to dig into their private life. What if they were wrong? Then what kind of invasion of that? And then it becomes a thing of how much do you allow? Like, what's the level of invasion that's okay? And it's a really tough subject. So that's more of what the documentary is talking about. There's a pretty crazy point in one piece. They're actually talking to a police. I think he's a sergeant, and he works in Baltimore. And he's talking about how he knew a family. It was a family of 5 that a drug dealer ended up murdering. And it's something that obviously really shook him when he's talking about. And he makes this point of, yes, it's this horrible thing, and yes, he's a drug dealer, but if he was making all his transactions online, that wouldn't have happened. Like, if he had a space he was relegated to that you never had to have these one-on-one meetings, then that very likely wouldn't have happened. And so there's this thought of, if the drug war is a losing battle, then maybe it's better it takes place on the internet than takes place face to face. And so it's just some very interesting ideas that I personally have never had to be confronted with. And so that makes it a very good watch. It gets a bit slow in kind of the back third of the documentary. So it got a bit tough, but I would say definitely the first, let's say, hour of it is a very strong watch. And it does make you really consider that, what level of rights is reasonable for everybody, and reasonable within the context of promoting safety. But then also, what are the trade-offs? Like, if you know something bad is going to happen, like there was a really good quote in the film where someone made the comment that in the game of cat and mouse, the mice will ultimately win, but the cat will be well fed. So in a situation like that, then if you know it's a losing battle, then maybe there's a way that basically you compromise for the good of society. Very, very interesting. So the goal here is not to dive into those topics. That might be a bit darker or deeper than we want to go, pun intended. But definitely worth the watch. It's on Hulu. It's called Deep Web. Check it out. And again, I'd say definitely the first hour is riveting. So thoughts from you guys? Anything that strikes you from that?
I mean, I'm in. I'll check it out. That stuff has been, I don't know. It's interesting to hear that side of it from you and kind of a little bit more of like what all this stuff really is, because, I've heard through random things of like how bad the dark web is or what's available there, or it's this underground, like it's this underground, like, black market where you can buy and sell everything. And yeah, the idea of like, this is going to happen. So what if it was a controlled environment where you would get some of those people off the street doing it? Like, that's a very interesting conversation. I mean, obviously I don't know where it hits me, but I've never thought of that. So yeah, I'll watch it.
And it's weird too. And again, you can't pin down a single owner and they even say that there are multiple people, that potentially 3 or 4 people ultimately managing it, but they all tend to have this same kind of, I want to say theology almost, that's underpinning it, which is to say that they don't want to deal in anything that hurts other people. So drugs are something that hurts you personally,
sure,
right? But like, they're very clear, at least when we're talking about Silk Road, that so I was under the impression going into this, because I had heard some stuff before, I was under the impression as far as like the buying and selling hitmen and like stuff like that, like it turns out that's something they don't allow.
No arms deals and no like nuclear weapons and stuff like that.
There are very clear things they outlaw even on Silk Road, because they say that those affect other people. Anything that affects someone else is not something that's up for sale. If it's something where basically you're killing yourself, have at it. But so it is bizarre, because it's very easy to just paint everybody in the light of just like monster,
right,
and criminal. And so to think that there's some like morality that's undergirding that it's just outside of what our normal thought process would be.
Sure.
And so for that part at least, I think it's a very worthwhile watch.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely check it out. Yep.
Cool. So that's it. So Andrew, it's yours now, right?
Okay, yeah, I think that's it for this episode. If you want to check this out, go to mofonepodcast.com where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff that we are talking about. You can also, if you're listening to this on YouTube, just check the links below. Give this video a like, give it a share on all your different platforms, and subscribe. Subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube. We're getting close to being able to claim our own... what's it called? URL?
Yep.
Whatever. On YouTube. So that's based on the number of subscribers that you have. So go ahead and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. And like we've said so many times during this episode, starting September 14th, these episodes will be totally visual. So you'll be able to see what we're talking about as well as hear about it. Rate and review the show on iTunes. It helps us out a ton. It doesn't cost you very much time at all. It doesn't cost you any money. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/MF1podcast and become a patron on there. For $5, I believe, a month, you get the blooper level, and the blooper level gets you some access to some fun stuff every month. Our patrons just got their blooper level, got their blooper reel yesterday, I believe, and it's a good time. It's just ridiculous.
An hour and 15 minutes of garbage.
It's just ridiculous. And it also gets you access to our special patron channel in our Slack community, as well as early access to information and things that are dropping. So become a patron, support the show. It helps us out so much. If you're already a patron, thank you. And I think, is there anything else? Find us on social media. You can just find us anywhere at M of One Podcast and all the different platforms. We're going to be at Reimagine. I'm going to be at Circles this week in Dallas. I guess it's actually the Grapevine area, but if you're in the Dallas area and you're going to be at Circles especially, but even if you're not going to be at Circles and you're in the Dallas area, we're going to grab dinner one night and we'll post it on social media.
Have you been before?
I've never been. To Dallas or to the...
Well, to Grapevine or to Circles?
I've not been to Grapevine, I don't believe, but I have not been to Circles.
So
I'm excited.
I think the guy's name is Ishmael Bursiaga. He's the guy that does circles, squares, lines, all that kind of stuff. Super great guy. Make sure you talk to him. Grapevine, beautiful city. I hope you like wine, because if there are 30 buildings in the whole city, 20 of them are wineries. So I hope you're ready to go.
Yes, I don't like wine at all. So I just now canceled my trip to Circles. I'm just gonna go ahead and
okay, but there is one place that sells
Diet Coke.
No, it's a hot dog. Hold on, this is exciting. It's a hot dog that's covered in chili and cheese and then deep fried. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
It's covered in chili and cheese and then deep fried?
Yes, and then you'll eat it with like ketchup or mustard.
It's called the Heart Attack.
It doesn't sound like anything that I would eat anymore.
It's called a donkey tail, and it is amazing.
Cool.
And you can get them in Grapevine.
Hard pass.
I'll have to have Doc try it and let me know how it is. Or maybe I'll have a bite of his or something. Yeah, come hang out with us. We're going to do a meetup there. We're going to be in Costa Mesa for Reimagine. We're going to be in Austin for Pop-Up Crop and for MondoCon. So lots of stuff over the next month and a half. Lots of ways for you to connect with us. Lots of ways to hang out and get a drink and get a slice of pizza. Maybe play a board game or two. So, the best way to find out all that stuff is to follow us on social media and to follow us on our website. There's a map that's on our website right on the homepage that will plot all those things for you, and you can track where we are and what we're doing out in the world, in the wild. But for now, we're going to get out of here. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Luke.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.